School. For those of you that don't know Barbri, we are an SQE law school, so providing all of the preparation courses and additional preparation for all of those of you who are considering the solicitor's qualifying exam as your route into the profession. And today I'm just really going to be covering a little bit of an overview, really, as to why you might be thinking about a legal career, particularly for those of you who aren't studying law at the moment at QMU. What the different roles are that exist within the profession, what the routes are, where the different practice areas lie, and also the kind of skills that you might need to be thinking about now if you're thinking about pursuing a role within the legal profession. As Lydia said, please feel free to drop any questions you've got in the chat, and I'll answer anything at the end. So, without further ado, let's kick off with perhaps just doing a bit of myth busting. We tend to receive a lot of questions from students all over the UK, but also from overseas as well, who have been given information that may or not be quite accurate when it comes to how to pursue their route into the legal profession. And quite a number of these, I've just pulled out 5 that I thought might be quite interesting just to raise with you all. But we get quite a few questions around the fact that if students aren't studying law at university, is that a problem for them to be able to qualify as a solicitor or a barrister? And in fact, that is false. You know, you don't have to study law at university to qualify as a solicitor or a barrister. I'm very much going to concentrate on the solicitor profession today, but people from all backgrounds, irrespective of the degree that you've completed, can access the legal profession as qualified solicitors. Another myth is that only Oxford and Cambridge University graduates are successful in securing jobs in commercial law firms. That's absolutely false. As I'm sure you will have gathered in your time at QMU through your events where you are in front of law firms and other legal employers. All universities certainly get their fair share of exposure to large law firms that do a lot of the commercial work, and firms, just like with the SQE, are looking to open the profession to a much wider, broader range of people to make it much more representative of society. So of course you're not going to be cherry picking people from Oxford and Cambridge. You want a much more varied demographic of students who are pursuing a career within commercial law firms. Another myth is that you must train as a solicitor before progressing to become a barrister. That's completely wrong. They are distinct professions, distinct roles within the profession, the legal profession itself. So you train in a certain way to become a solicitor, and you train in a different way to become a barrister. You don't need to do one first before the other. Another myth is that some lawyers spend no part of their day in court. That is absolutely correct. I certainly, when I qualified, I have only ever been into a courtroom for some shadowing work. That was all I did. So depending on the work depending on the area of law that you want to train in, depending on the skills that you really want to focus on, and your role, you are likely to spend no part of your day in a courtroom. You're much more likely to be in front of clients in your law firm itself. And then, of course, lawyers are existing to protect our human rights, and that's absolutely key. I speak to a lot of students who say, "Oh, I really just want to become a human rights lawyer," and I always say to them, "Well, look, you know, even if they are few and far between in terms of the opportunities that exist as specific human rights lawyers, but you as a solicitor or legal professional are there for societal reasons, and therefore you are providing support and protection to help uphold the law, which in itself is there to protect our human rights. So you're there as a practitioner to help and protect the values and the rights that we have as individuals. So that was just a bit of myth busting. Let's think about why you might be thinking about a legal career. Well, again, just in terms of feedback from our students that we speak to on a regular basis, many of them are looking to do it for intellectual challenge, and because it relates to real life situations. You might come across, a car accident, or somebody who's I don't know, been burgled, perhaps their home, and of course, what you need in that situation is the advice of a lawyer to help resolve that situation, or for you to understand what steps to take to help either claim damages or whatever the outcome may be. And therefore, it really does relate to real life situations. It can, of course, depending on the area that you practice in, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, it can be quite challenging individually as a profession, but of course, you do have that possibility of helping other people. You might be concentrating your practice on supporting individual people in society, or individual organizations like companies, for example. And no 2 days really are the same. Irrespective of the work that you're doing, you are likely to be dealing with different clients on different issues, and potentially in different or managing different parties to a particular case or issue. A lot of people who do a law degree, for example, never go on to become qualified lawyers in the profession. But what you are doing is you are gaining transferable skills that can be used in a whole host of different other professions as well. A lot of my peers who I went to law school with never went on to the profession and are now working in lots and lots of different fields. So, but it's seen as a very, very useful foundation and grounding to really help you understand the skills that could be used in other professions. And we'll talk about skills in just a moment. For those of you that are interested in status and potential earning opportunities, then yes, certain areas of the law are very well remunerated. And of course, you do have that status as a professional, which can be very enticing for many students. And of course, unlike when I qualified, where you just really went into becoming a solicitor in private practice or as a barrister, nowadays there's a whole range of different career options available within the legal profession, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So I referenced just now the fact that lawyers need skills. It's what law firms look for. And for those of you you're all going to be at different stages in your learning at the moment at university, but for those of you that are perhaps looking at applying for training contracts or other experiences within legal employers, they will be looking at these types of skills. This is not exhaustive, but this is just an example of some of the ones that we know from our conversations with law firms that they are looking for. Let's just pull out a few here. Things like verbal and written communication. I mean, it sounds pretty obvious that lawyers are really needing to be able to explain, write, provide guidance and advice in either oral or written communication. And so that skill is absolutely core as one of the key skills that you need to develop if this is the area of a profession that you want to go into. Likewise, being able to analyze problems and solve those problems is, of course, why clients come to you. You're there to provide a service where they have a problem, and you are there to provide guidance and support as to how they can resolve that as well. So problem solving is absolutely key, along with things like commercial awareness. Many of you will have heard of the term commercial awareness, and of course, it's about understanding the law as it sits within the business world. It's understanding if you have a client who is, I don't know, selling their business, for example, you need to understand what kind of issues may impact that sale. So it could be political issues, it could be economic issues. So commercial awareness is a kind of umbrella term really for really understanding the world of business and the way in which how that affects your clients and your law firm in terms of the services that it provides. So you can see there quite a large range of skills. A really helpful exercise for you to do in your own time is to identify perhaps some of those skills that you think at the moment perhaps you already have. So you may feel as though, let's take an example, team working, for example, down the left-hand side there. You may feel as though you can already demonstrate that particular skill, and you've done that through perhaps some work experience. Maybe you've got a part-time job whilst you're at university, and you might have to work with a group of people in that particular role. And so you may feel as though you're very happy about being able to demonstrate that, but you might not be so confident in things like analysis and problem solving, for example. So this exercise is really designed for you to have those skills that we've just looked at, and identify where in your life, be that home, be that in your academic learning, in any extracurricular, maybe sports activities, or any work experience, where you can hone that particular skill or develop that skill. And it's just a really helpful checklist as you go into thinking about your career within the law, to see whether you enjoy those skills and enjoy those competencies. And if you don't, how can you develop them? So do take the time to have a look through that and work on that when you can. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the variation of roles that now exist within the profession. Solicitors really make up the largest part of the legal profession. There's about 145,000 solicitors working within England and Wales. And they tend to be the first point of contact for any clients, whether that's individual clients who are members of the public who come off the high street, or a client who might be a big company, for example. On the other side of the legal profession is what we call barristers, and barristers make up a much smaller percentage of the profession. They make up about 10% of the profession. So about 14 to 15,000 barristers are now practicing in England and Wales. So a much smaller profession, and it requires a very different skill set, really. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's stick with solicitors for the time being. As I mentioned, they are the first point of contact for clients, irrespective of what that client may look like. If a client has a problem, they will go to a solicitor and say, I have this problem, I need it resolved. What steps do I need to take to get some resolution, or whatever the outcome might be? Those solicitors tend to be employed in a law firm, and that can be a law firm that is literally a couple of lawyers working just off a high street in a local town in the UK, or it could be in one of the big skyscrapers in London, where hundreds and hundreds of lawyers are employed in very specialist areas. Or they could be working what we call in-house, and that really means working as a lawyer, but within a corporate setting. So corporate in terms of a business, like a large business, like I don't know, it could be a bank like HSBC, or it could be a big tech company like Google, or a big manufacturer like BMW, for example. They all have large legal departments where they have lawyers working for them to deal with all of the legal issues that they may have, either internally or working on legal disputes with clients that they might be working for or with. But solicitors tend to receive a salary. They tend to be employed as staff within an organization, and it tends to have a much greater conformity in terms of the career path and regulation that exists within the solicitor profession. So once you have decided you want to become a solicitor, you would start off as a trainee for a couple of years. You would then become an associate. So you're a qualified lawyer then, so you're an associate. Then you could become a senior associate, and then go on to partnership if that's the route you wish to take. So it's a very, very structured career path. On the flip side, barristers are actually self-employed. A lot of people that I know who've become barristers have done it because they like the kind of autonomy that they have. It's much more independent as a profession, and it's much more specialist. So a solicitor would go to a barrister to represent a client in court, and they'd also go to a barrister to get really, really specific specialist advice on a certain case that they're dealing with. So those barristers are real experts in what they do. The one thing is, though, is that there is less progression in terms of, from a career perspective, for becoming a barrister, and it's also extremely competitive to get into. We also have a third sort of strand to the legal profession, which is what I'm calling legal support. There's probably a better term for it, but I'm calling it legal support for the purposes of today. And that's really encompassing all of the other sorts of areas of the legal profession where people are not what we would call fee earners necessarily, but they might be employed within a law firm working in specialist areas like legal technology or legal operations, legal project management, those types of things where a law firm employs you as an individual for your skill set. So, for example, if you're doing an IT degree at the moment, or you're doing an engineering degree, and you find that the legal profession is quite interesting, you might want to go and apply for one of these alternative careers. Plenty of people also qualify as solicitors first, and then they go into these areas because they have an interest in them. It might be looking at different technologies to help the law firm become more efficient in the way in which it delivers its services, on the way in which it bills its clients. Lots and lots of different opportunities there. It's just another route, really, or another path for you to think about. Again, you would receive a salary. You're employed in a law firm or in a corporate. But there are other support roles as well. Paralegaling. Many of you will be thinking about paralegaling as the starting step before becoming fully qualified as a solicitor, and it's a valuable role within the profession. We have about 65,000 paralegals working within the UK at the moment. It's a huge chunk of legal services, and it gives you the opportunity to really get your hands on some of the practice of the law without becoming fully qualified. We get a lot of paralegals who work within specialist areas like wills and trusts and conveyancing and things like that, where you're doing relatively similar things day in, day out, and you're usually overseen by a solicitor, but it is itself a separate area of the legal profession. And then finally, you're also potentially having the opportunity to work in marketing or business development within law firms, those very large law firms that are there to go out and really sell themselves as organizations, because they've got to be competitive. They've got to set themselves apart from what other law firms are also going out to the market with to try and get business. Again, I'm not going to go through all of this in great detail, but for those of you who are thinking about becoming a solicitor, you'll be hearing the terms of, commercial law firms, for example, and that tends to be the larger firms, and we call them full service commercial law firms. So by that, I mean, there'll be lawyers working within those law firms who provide specialist advice within certain practice areas and certain areas of business. So, for example, you might have lawyers who work in competition law or dispute resolution or employment law. And what they will do is they will receive a client or a company, for example, who might be their client, who says, oh, I need support on resolving a dispute with another company that we bought, or is trying to take us over, and we don't want that to happen. How do we resolve it? And so these commercial law firms are there really to support big organizations with all of their needs when it comes to the corporate and commercial world. So the bulk of our activities, particularly in London and the bigger cities in the UK, tend to be the full service commercial law firms who are there to really support the needs of organizations and companies. On the flip side, you might be thinking, well, actually, I'm not so interested in more of the commercial and corporate stuff. I'd rather be involved in maybe criminal work or family law. In that case, yes, some of those big law firms will, of course, deal with those non-commercial matters, but you'll also find that the smaller law firms, like the high street firms or the niche, sort of what I would call boutique firms, really specialize in these areas, and they become synonymous for particular practice areas like family law, for example. And depending on your sort of ambitions, it takes a certain mindset, it takes a certain skill set to practice in some of these areas. Sometimes it can be very stressful working in things like family law, for example, very emotional, but very rewarding at the same time. You're making a big difference to people who are, perhaps going through a divorce or having some, housing issues or whatever it might be. So again, lots and lots of different areas here. When you're thinking about your route into the profession, you don't have to make your decision now. as to what area you want to practice in, but it is certainly something that you're going to be thinking about relatively soon once you're finishing your university time. What does a typical day look like for a solicitor? Well, you might be attending meetings, you might be taking calls, you might be negotiating with lawyers who are working on the other side of a deal. So you're representing one client and they're representing the other. Of course, you're going to have to negotiate with them to find the right settlement or agreement or negotiation on whatever deal you're working on. Huge component part of becoming a lawyer are some of the skills around specifically for the legal profession, such as research, drafting, interviewing, presentations, those sorts of things. They're all really, really important skills that you'll learn if you're going into the legal profession. So you'll be looking at needing to research points of law, attending court hearings potentially, or presenting a pitch to a new client. You've got to go out there and get the work and represent your law firm. So a typical day can be very, very varied in terms of the activities that you might be doing. So when we think a little bit more about those routes, I've set out the types of roles that exist: solicitors, barristers, legal support, the different practice areas, but actually what are the sorts of routes that you might be thinking about taking? Now, this may not apply to any of you now because the process has changed, the system has changed very, very recently. But for those of you that started your degrees before September 21, then you may still be able to take what we call the traditional route, which is through the legal practice course. But for the bulk of you who started after September 2021, you will now need to do the Solicitors Qualifying Exam, or SQE as it's known. Now, the new route, therefore, was created and introduced by the Solicitors Regulation Authority, which is our regulator for the profession. And they decided back in 2021 that they wanted to open up the legal profession to a much broader spectrum of people and make it much more accessible and much more flexible, which I think is a fantastic thing. And by that, what they've done is they've introduced the new Solicitors Qualifying Exam as a centralised exam that everybody has to take. Okay, so it doesn't matter where you go to law school. We are just one law school of many. You will take exactly the same exam. You can also have a law degree under your belt already, or have a completely different discipline of degree. It doesn't matter. As long as you've got an undergraduate degree, that's really one of the key aspects. You then go on to do your Solicitors Qualifying Exam, which is a two-part exam, which I'll talk about in just a second, plus what they call qualifying work experience. So QWE, which is made up of a 2-year work experience. Now, it can be done. One of the things that has changed from the old traditional route into this new route is that, yes, that 2-year requirement for work experience still exists, but under the old route, you had to do those 2 years in one law firm. Now, that was quite tricky for a lot of students because they'd finished their LPC and they'd think, right, I need to get my training contract, and it could take them years to get a training contract. It was a real hurdle for many, many students. And so they've done away with that, and they've now said, you can gain qualifying work experience in your 2 years still, but you can do it in 4 different organizations, which is fantastic because it means that you can do it. You don't have to do it in a 2-year block. You can do it before the SQE, you can do it during your SQE, you can do it afterwards. As long as you've got that 2 years completed by the time you are admitted as a solicitor, that's all that you need to consider. The other thing I would say about qualifying work experience is do make sure that whatever you're doing whilst you're at university and you're exploring this area, is that it's got to be of quality and it's got to be of value to you. So don't go and do, if you're wanting to go and become a corporate lawyer, don't go and do 2 weeks worth of experience in family law and 2 weeks in immigration, for example, because it's not necessarily going to be of value to you as your career progresses. Look for those more substantial experiences and look in the practice areas that you are hopefully or hoping to go into beyond your qualification. Think about it now. There are opportunities, I'm sure, within QMU itself where you can access the hands-on experience. I know certainly you've got a legal advice clinic. There are vacation schemes that you can apply for, or summer placements within law firms. Have a look at some of the key legal industry guides on that. So people like lawcareers.net, Legal Cheek, people like that, have a look at their websites. They publish all of the dates for those. And also get involved with your university law society or or do some mock trial work as well whilst you're at university. It doesn't have to wait until you finish university. So do explore those options while you can. There are alternative routes. The SQE is the main route, okay? But there are apprenticeships that exist. There are paralegal apprenticeships and graduate solicitor apprenticeships that are about 2 to 3 year program once you've done your law degree. That makes up about 80% working within a law firm and then about 20% studying at the same time. So it would prepare you just as it would for anybody who's done the SQE, but you're doing it through the graduate solicitor apprenticeship route. There's lots of information on apprenticeships on the government website, so do have a look at that. Just Google apprenticeships and it will come up with all of the law firms and legal employers that provide those. There's also a SILEX route. That's just another form of really kind of becoming an expert in a certain area, but through the Chartered Institute of Legal Executives. And then, of course, as I mentioned already, the paralegal route. There's an organisation called the National Association for Licensed Paralegals that is the overarching body for anybody who wants to become a paralegal. We have a lot of them here at Barbri who've been working for a number of years and then want to qualify through a different route into the SQE. So lots and lots of routes for you to think about there as you think about the profession. So let's talk a little bit more about the SQE. I'm sure many of you will already know a lot about the SQE, but for those of you who don't, it is the new route into the legal qualification in England and Wales, and is 2 stages in terms of the assessment. The assessment is, as I mentioned, it is a centralised assessment, so everybody does the same exam. It's made up of 2 areas, SQE1 and SQE2. You have to complete SQE1 and pass that before you can take SQE2. And they are very different in terms of the assessments. SQE1 is very much based on the substantive law. It's about what we'd call functioning legal knowledge, and it's assessed in multiple choice format, and it can be done as a computer-based exam. The exams are all multi-subject, so you aren't going to be tested on contract, then tort, then criminal. You'll be tested across the board with multiple different subjects all within the question. So it's very challenging. Whereas SQE2, it's all about legal skills assessment. So what that's doing is testing you on your ability to do research, writing, drafting, negotiation, interviewing, all of the skills of becoming a lawyer in different practice areas. So it's, again, challenging, but it's done in a very, very different format. Like I said earlier, it's been the whole process has been opened. It's become much more accessible. So it's available for people who have a law degree and for those that don't have a law degree. But ultimately, it's designed to be much more flexible for people to access. So it's got these first stage, second stage, the qualifying work experience, which is the third stage. And then, of course, we have the character and suitability requirements as well, which is nothing for you to worry about at the time being. For the time being, it's really just there to identify any kind of conduct issues. But again, nothing for you to worry about for the time being. In terms of costs, the SQE1 exam is about £1,800. It's made up of a 2-day exam, each day 180 multiple choice questions, so altogether 360, and it is computer based. So all of it's assessed, it's administered by Pearson, Kaplan and Pearson. Pearson have multiple test centres around the world, and where they have a test centre, you can take the exam. So it doesn't require you to, if you're based normally in another country, then you may well be able to access that exam in that country. These are the subjects that are tested within SQE1. Some of you who are doing a law degree at the moment at QMU will think, oh yeah, I can see, contract tort, land law, criminal law, English legal system. Of course, they're areas that you will, of course, cover within your law degree. But of course, it's beyond that as well. It's things like business law and practice, property practice, and And of course, ethics and professional conduct pervade all of it as well. So it's multifaceted. SQE2, on the other hand, is about £2,800. Why the extra cost? Well, it's because of the way it's assessed. It's much more one-to-one. It's all skills-based. It's not computer-based. So you can do this exam after you finish SQE1, and it's covering, as I've already mentioned, the main core areas of skills that you need to really hone as a lawyer in various different practice areas. And that's done over multiple days. So why would you think about coming to us? As I said, we are just one of many law schools. We have a very, very strong pass rate. For those students who have completed 90% or more of our course, their pass rate is 76%, which is against a 51% average across the board. And then for those who've then gone on to take SQE2, you can see the pass rate is much higher. It's 83% compared to a 71% average. So we're very, very happy with the number of students that we have going through the SQE. And in terms, to give you a bit of context, we train about 4,000 to 5,000 students a year on SQE at the moment. And that's obviously increased dramatically over the years that we've been delivering it. What's the course made up of? Well, we give you, as I've just mentioned, a personal study plan, which is effectively your online learning platform where all of your content is delivered to. You'll receive access to all of that, including a coach, a learning coach who is there to provide hand-holding and support, both on academic matters and progression, as you go through your course with us. And of course, Barbri, as a law school, has always specialized in multiple choice questions because historically we've always prepared students in the US for their law exams for each of the states, the 50 states of the US exams, and they have always been multiple choice. And so we've always really focused very heavily on the way in which we prepare students for multiple choice questions. You'll also receive hard copy books as well that are all written by us as English practitioners. And then there will be workshops available to you to help you really build your approach to how to prepare for this exam, what we call prep for success, but also your strategy and your approach to really approaching the questions, because as I said, it is a challenging exam. All of our courses are designed for students from all backgrounds. So about 25% of our student body is international. And then we have a large proportion who are non-law students. They've just finished a degree in some other discipline. And then the rest of our students tend to be law graduates themselves. But you can see a full range of different student backgrounds, particularly for those who are working at the same time. So once you finish your degree, you might be thinking, right, I need to go and get a job, whether that's in law or whether it's not in law, and I'm going to be pursuing my SQE at the same time. Well, come to us because we will prepare you virtually for that exam through our online learning. For those of you that aren't law students at the moment, you may feel a bit anxious about starting what is essentially quite a challenging course for a challenging exam. We have a course called SQE Foundations, which is designed to really help build that confidence in you before, really helping you understand the terminology that's used within the law, understanding the differences in the English legal system, how that works, the concept of precedent, etc., and all of the kind of key legal concepts. So I would encourage you, for those of you that don't have a law degree, before you start SQE prep, is to do the SQE Foundations. It's a 6-week course and designed for students who don't have a law degree. From a careers perspective, as head of the careers department, we're there to provide you with all of the support that you need to help you satisfy your career aspirations within the legal sector, whether that's through signposting you to opportunities for qualifying work experience or vacation schemes. We deliver all of our content through our Career Hub system, which is effectively a career management system. And then you'll have one-to-one support with all of our careers counsellors, much like you do at university, to help you really navigate your career journey into the legal profession. And of course, what we do each month is we bring in experts in the field. So it could be in legal technology, it could be in legal operations, it could be somebody working in Microsoft, for example, in their legal team, to come in and talk to you about all of the opportunities that exist within the profession and the different routes that they've taken to get there. So just to finish off, really, it's a time for you to reflect now. I've obviously given you a lot of information today, and it's an opportunity for you to think, right, is the legal career really the right thing for me? So have in mind that, yes, it is very, very competitive as a sector. So you will need to achieve some very strong grades whilst you're at university. And of course, the final grade that you receive for your degree needs to be a decent grade for you to get the most opportunity. We've talked about skills. It's a really, really important part of your journey into the profession. It's not about the academic learning of the law. That's just a given. You know, that's what law firms expect. You've got to have the right skills as well. So look at that that chart that I mentioned at the beginning. Have a look at those skills, how you're performing in those areas at the moment, whether there's opportunity for you to develop those a little bit more, and do you enjoy using them? It's a really, really useful reflective exercise for you to do. It can be quite a long journey for some students doing their route into the legal profession. You know, it's not immediate that you will get experience. It's not immediate that you'll get your ultimate job within the legal sector, but give it time. Keep building all of those experiences, and hopefully your ambitions for working in whatever area that you want to work in will be realized. It isn't a 9-to-5 job. And, you know, don't go in with the expectation that it will be, because it won't be. Certainly within your training period, you will need to put the hours in. But again, the rewards will be such that you will gain a huge amount of experience as a result of it, and potentially, you know, earn relatively decent money as a result of that. But, you know, on the flip side, not all lawyers earn the big bucks that, you know, is portrayed on television and in film and things like that. It's not always as glamorous, depending on what area of law you go into, as what it looks like on TV. But ultimately, you get out of it what you put in, really. So you make the most of the opportunities that exist for you. Make sure that those opportunities are of value and of quality for you. But ultimately, the final thing to think about is how committed you are to the profession. Is it something that you've always wanted to do, or is this simply just another option for you as you go through? So just really think about all of those questions about what really motivates you towards the profession, and talk to people who are already in there. You know, talk to peers who've been through it, have been through SQE, or have had the opportunity to do some work experience, and really share their experience and feedback of how they found it. In terms of next steps, you're all probably at different stages of your degrees at the moment, but once you come to it, think about your SQE. Like I said, yes, we are one law school, but within the sector, at the moment, QMU students receive a 10% discount on our SQE, so you can find all that information on our website there. We run lots and lots of different law events and law fairs. We have campus ambassadors on site at QMU as well, so speak to them about your intentions. And also, you know, if you're still thinking, yeah, you know, it's still not sure whether this is quite the right thing for me, have a look at our Barbri Head Start, which is a toolkit that gives you lots of information about the legal sector and people who have pursued it and their experiences. It's a really, really helpful platform for you to deep dive into. As I said at the beginning, as I said just a moment ago about the Foundations in Law program, if you're thinking about that as a non-law student, go and have a look at it on our website. There's lots more information there. And we've also got a program called SQE1 Boost, which is, again, an opportunity for you just to practice multiple choice questions. They are very different from how you be assessed at your time at university, and so it's a really good opportunity for you to practice that type of question and the way in which you need to approach it and the technique that you need to approach those MCQs before you actually sit your exam. So I do encourage you to look at that program as well. Feel free just to scan that QR code if you'd like more information on our SQE1 course. But other than that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, sorry, there is a little bit more information here just about fees. In terms of our fees, our course fee is about £3,000. It's a little bit over if you do our longer course, which is 40 weeks long. But we've got multiple scholarships, multiple instalment options for payment. For some of them, it's just £199 sign-up fee in effect, and then you can space all of your payments over a period of time. We also have loans and other arrangements with organisations like Klarna, etc., for paying your fees if you wish to pursue your SQE with us. So thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so I can see everybody. I hope that was helpful to you.